Hi everybody, my name is Nayla. God told me to build him an altar, so I made him the Thenaylaproject. I'm going to be sharing my testimony with you guys today, so I'm going to start at my childhood. I grew up in church. My grandma took us every Sunday, pretty much had a routine. My family was extremely religious. My dad preached and he baptized me around 8 years old. My parents were divorced, so I would spend a lot of time at my dad's house. When I was around 5 or 6 years old, the daughter of one of my dad's friends began SAing me. She did this for years in many forms. I think my brain has blocked out a lot of it in order to protect me emotionally. But the things I do remember scarred me deeply. I began to wet the bed and have serious behavioral issues, which everyone just attributed to just that, behavioral issues. I remember my father finding the door locked once and being like, "Hey, open the door with me and her inside of the room." And I remember her telling me something that is now only a blurry sound. Now, years later, my dad confessed to me that he had a suspicion that something might have been happening because she had tried to come on to him as well. I carried the guilt and the shame for my abuse, even though I was a baby, I was a child, and I didn't know any better. But this person had put it on me to feel like I wanted this. So I buried it for a couple of years. We immigrated from Nicaragua to Canada, and when we got here, I noticed that I was a lot more sexually curious than a lot of the kids my age. It raised red flags because we were raised in an environment that condemned sex, and you were told that if you had it, you were gonna go to hell. I ended up telling my mom what had happened, and at that point my mom didn't know Christ. She's an angel now. But her reaction made me bury this so deeply that I never talked about it again for years. From then on, the devil used that sin to take me into a crisis of identity. I didn't understand what had happened to me, much less why it had happened to me. I began to get depressed and I started self-harming around 12 or 13 years old. During my teenage years, I was in and out of mental hospitals and taking multiple forms of medication for depression and anxiety. I was also diagnosed with bipolar disorder. We'll fast forward through the drugs and the drinking because I feel like a lot of Christians go through that and I don't think it's very significant, but I was into partying. I kept telling myself that I was just having fun and that now was the time because I was so young and that I had time to get good with God later, but I didn't realize that my time was so short. Around 17 years old, one of my friends introduced me to the world of financial domination and sugar daddies. I started seeking out much older men who could provide for me financially because I told myself that I wanted a lifestyle that working couldn't provide. When I felt unsafe, I would take pictures of license plates and IDs so my family could find me if something happened to me. I started doing some online sex work like OnlyFans, selling my belongings online for money, selling pictures of myself for money, and going out with sugar daddies is a transactional exchange. And while I know this lifestyle is completely glamorized, a lot of the times I was talking and being with men that made me extremely uncomfortable, but the validation and the money was just too good for me to leave this life. We'll move past all of that and we'll talk about how I came to Christ because this is the main event. I had something called the hole. One of my dear family friends who is now pastoring a church told me to pray the prayer, "Lord, do whatever it takes to build my character to my gifts." Because it was undeniable that I was gifted and charismatic, but I had no backbone. So I prayed the prayer, and about 2 days later, I woke up with an excruciating pain at the bottom of my back. I went to the ER 3 times and nobody could find what was wrong with me, but by the third day that I had gone to the ER, I could barely feel my legs and everything was just so excruciatingly painful. I was crying day and night, and I just remember my mom telling me, "You know this is your trial, right?" And when you're in that state of illness, like those were fighting words, like I was gonna go to war with her. What ended up happening was they found an infection at the bottom of my spine, and they decided that it would be a good idea to drain it. They drained it and the infection became incredibly aggressive. After the infection became incredibly aggressive, nobody would operate on me. I had a chronic wound at the bottom of my spine that refused to close. They gave me rounds on rounds of antibiotics and painkillers, and the infection just would not budge. I ended up suffering through that for about a year and a half. I was bedridden for 9 months. I went from hospital to hospital to hospital, finding somebody that could give me answers about what was wrong with me and what they could do about it. Nobody wanted to touch the spine of a 20-year-old girl that could leave her paralyzed or risk her never walking again. The painkillers and antibiotics ended up ruining my stomach. They burned my stomach completely. By the final few months of me being sick, I was barely able to eat. My mom was showering me, feeding me. I couldn't even wash my hair in the shower for months. While I was sick, the Lord made me a lot of promises. I said, Lord, I'm going to give you a real chance here. Don't let me down. And God didn't let me down. Because God had tried everything else with me. So when I told him do whatever it takes, God did whatever it took. God knew that if he hadn't benched me completely, that I would have never gotten out of being lukewarm. Because when you go through something like that, being bedridden left me with no choice other than to seek God or be miserable. God promised me that I wouldn't die, and he promised me my body back 10 times better than what I went into it with. God didn't leave my side for a second the entire time I was sick. And it still blows my mind. I tell people all the time, God didn't do it to me, he did it for me, because I was so damaged. The devil had made me believe that I was too far beyond repair, that I was too dirty for God. The reason why I ran so far for so many years was because the God that I got introduced to was a mean God who wanted to punish me for everything I did wrong. When you grow up in an abusive household and you're getting told that that is what the Lord looks like, you think that God is an abusive God, but God is not an abusive God. God is a gentleman who waited for me 20 years, and he knocked every day until I was ready. Every doctor that I saw could not give me an answer of when I would heal or how. During that year that I was ill, the Lord purged my heart, and the infection didn't leave my wound until the infection left my heart.
You can do it. Today was so painful. I wouldn't die. I don't want to do this anymore. But the Lord is my strength, and I'll keep going until it's over.
I had a sister with a prophetic gift while I was sick come and tell me that I was pregnant. And I said, no, baby, you got the wrong person. And all she told me was, you're not pregnant physically, you're pregnant in the spirit, and you're very far along. I was bedridden a total of 9 months. I carried my blessing to term. Now I clung on to the promise that God told me that he would give me my body back better. And the Lord told me get off the painkillers. So that's what I did. The Lord managed my pain. The Lord told me start going to the gym. I started going to the gym and I lost nearly 100 pounds. From then on, things have only been uphill with God. January of last year, the Lord told me that he was going to give me a Christian platform. He told me to build him an altar and call it the Thenaylaproject. I started posting videos, and the only 3 people that used to like my videos were my sisters. From then on, the Lord built me a platform on Instagram. My username is Thenaylaproject because I will always be the Lord's project. But thank God I'm not where I used to be. My mom came to Christ 7 years ago, and if it wasn't for her, I would have never seen what God's real love looks like. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." If you happen to be going through your hole right now, here are a couple things that I wish someone would have told me while I was sick. God is enough. Even in that hospital bed, even in the moments where I was screaming, crying because the pain was so severe, even when it never seemed like it was gonna end, God was enough. And I thank God because I know that my story isn't over, but this chapter closed up pretty nicely. When I gave my testimony of being ill at my church, there were a lot of people that I wanted to thank. And I can't forget to thank them in this video as well. I'll start with my pastors, Juan Carlos and Janina. When I came to your church, I felt like Mary Magdalene, that I walked in and everyone was staring at me, waiting to stone me. But you guys have shown me what the love of God really looks like. Your patience and your perseverance with the disaster that I was. The way that you have defended me. I could never repay you for that. I love you guys. This church is my home. God bless you guys. Thank you for watching.